The title of this video is Results. Results matter. You need to measure things. You need to work out whether what you've created is good. Your executives are certainly going to want to know the answers to that question. So how do you get these mythical results? Well, you have to use some kind of measuring device. Well, you have to pick the right device for the right job. You need to know that it's working. You may need to tune it before using it. You need to use a particular technique in using it, reading them accurately to the finest graduation that you can. Perhaps there's also a storage aspect to it, storing it in accordance with standard procedures. But you also need to make choices about what you measure, and that can be quite tricky. Say you wanted to measure stress. Well, that's kind of a vague concept. So you might break it down into a number of dimensions: physical, emotional, and mental. But those dimensions might also have components as well. Well, in terms of physical tension, you might want to measure blood pressure or pulse or heart rate. But you need to understand that heart rate going up isn't necessarily just an indicator of stress. Your heart increases when you exercise, for example. So having a few indicators and putting them together may give you an idea of stress. Individually, they may also indicate other things. So you need to be careful. Now, measurement theory is a whole area, a whole discipline in its own right. And talking to a measurement expert is something you should definitely do at some stage if you need to get right into the nitty-gritty of measurement. Let's just scratch the surface a little bit. We'll start with measurement types. So there are 4 types of variables. Nominal variables are those whose attributes can be put into categories. There's no relationship between any category. There's no ordering. The categories are completely discrete. Now, ordinal variables have attributes that can be rank ordered. For example, you can say that something is more than another. Somebody is middle income or high income. Now, an interval has rank and a specific distance between them. For example, somebody earns $100,000 and somebody else earns $200,000. You can measure what the distance is there. Now, ratio variables have a rank, an interval, and a 0 point. And you can express something. You can express relationships. Something can be twice as much as something else. They're the 4 basic measurement types. What can you do with your measurements? Well, there's 2 classical types of reasoning that you can do upon them. With deductive reasoning, you start with a theory. Now, you can start anywhere, from theory to hypothesis, observation, or confirmation. But with deductive reasoning, you start with the theory. Say, for example, regular physical activity makes your body stronger. So you might then come up with a hypothesis. People who walk up stairs every day are fitter, or stronger, or faster. You then observe people, study 200 people, do a survey, find out which people do stairs, and then finally do the measurement, and you confirm whether this theory is actually correct or needs some refinement. That's deductive reasoning. You start with the theory, you then refine it, you then look at the world, you then make a modification of the theory. The other alternative to deductive reasoning is inductive reasoning. It's a little bit different. Instead of starting with the theory, you start with the observation. So say you watch a group of kids running around the track. A couple of kids are running really fast, and you happen to know that the kids that are running really fast live on the top of a skyscraper. Well, you then might start to do other observations. You might go to an athletics club and ask where the kids that are performing really well in that club are doing really well. So you might then come up with a hypothesis. You're starting to get an idea of what's actually going on there. And then that might lead you to a theory. A theory then might lead you to do further observation. Okay, so you start with the data and you work towards the theory. With deductive reasoning, you start with the theory and then work your way towards the data. Now, as I mentioned, measurement is a really complicated business. How long is a piece of string? Well, that's an interesting question, and it's worth actually looking up how to figure out the length of a piece of string. In general, using a ruler, take 10 readings, sum and divide by 10 to get the mean, and find the standard deviation. Okay, that's the basic, very basic statistics of measurement. that's not going to give you any sort of error. There are standard methods for measuring uncertainty, but these can be quite complicated, and I'm not going to go into any of them here at all, but you need to know that they exist. A good bit of reading on this, if necessary, is A Beginner's Guide to Uncertainty of Measurement by Stephanie Bell.